Lenny.
Hi, Nancy.
Welcome to Season 1, Episode 23 of the Front Porch Book Club.
The Front Porch Book Club is a podcast that meets twice a month.
We like to dig deep into the relationship between characters and the worlds they live in.
Grab your book and iced tea and join us on the Front Porch.
Lenny, today we interview Larry McDaniel about the Lincoln Highway.
Larry is related to us through marriage, not our own marriage, but he married our first cousin, Denise. So we know Larry.
We do. And Larry is the perfect person to talk to about the Lincoln Highway. He has been involved in the lives of children for decades. He founded Coyote Hill, and this is a nonprofit organization that works with children who are involved in state care.
Larry is amazing. His work with Coyote Hill, his understanding of trauma, his insights on this book are interesting, especially I think the trauma and what children need to grow. Lovely interview with Larry.
Yes, definitely. Let's get to it.
Okay, Nance, let's go.
Larry, thanks so much for stopping by our front porch.
You're welcome. I'm very glad to be here. I've looked forward to this.
We're so excited for you to join us. The Amor Towles book that we've all read now, life in the orphanage in Nebraska and also at the juvenile detention facility in Kansas has changed, thank goodness, since the 1950s. Drastically.
Right.
How are things going at Coyote and how have things changed?
Yeah, a little over 30 years ago, my late wife and I founded it. Things have changed majorly. Probably the biggest change over the years has been the recognition of the huge impact of trauma and early age trauma in children's lives and how that impacts their life going forward. I was born in 1956. And when I was a kid, you still didn't really talk about trauma. And if a child was struggling with something, there was just something wrong with them and they needed to shape up, they needed to get over it. And so you were working with kids that really needed some legitimate attention in the mental health field. But even that was frowned upon. I remember as a young person, people scoffing at the idea of needing help with mental health. And yet it's just as we know today. You know, we've evolved quite a bit. As we know today, it's as important as physical health, every bit as important as that. And I look at many of the struggles I had in high school, and I hated high school, every minute of it, but that wasn't really anyone's fault. And I say that because it's easy to pass blame and say, well, so-and-so should have done this and another person should have done that and parents should have done this, but nobody knew.
Yeah.
We were just uneducated to it. Today, we don't have that excuse. There's wonderful amounts of information out there that talks about and documents in a very clinical and scientific way of the huge amount of impact. And if somebody's interested in knowing more about that, just Google TBRI or Karen Purvis. She's a doctor, she's passed away now, who developed it. And you will find YouTube or anywhere, tons and tons of information. There's a book called The Boy Who Was Raised as a Dog. It was written by Dr. Bruce Perry. That will open your eyes. It's not a quick read. It's, it's long and laborious and clinical, but that's the purpose of it. It's pretty much common knowledge these days, the humongous impact of trauma and the impact it has throughout life. And so that's changed tremendously. It's just night and day, and it's good. It's about time.
That's well said, Larry. I agree with you. I would imagine that most of the kids that you see at Coyote Hill have trauma as a background. Is that right?
Yes, they do. They come with a lot of trauma. I also work with combat veterans, and there's a lot of trauma there. Many times they relate to each other. There can be the same kinds of things. We have children come to us with PTSD. We see a lot, you have attachment disorders and other things, mental health issues that really are from when they were growing up as a child. And for example, in this book we're looking at, Lincoln Highway, for example, I would have a lot to say about Duchess
Yeah.
in particular and what he had to go through and endure and the impact it had upon him. And not only him, but also Emmett and Billy, and it impacted them in a different way. But you can see that knowing something about their background and their upbringing, it's clear to see these things develop. Whereas back in that day and time, they didn't even know to think about such things. They wouldn't have understood the conversation. Today we look at it, we read that book. I read the book, and the first thing that comes to mind with regard to Emmett and Billy, and especially Duchess, was, well, of course that's how they behave. That it makes perfect sense now.
Yeah, really did. At Coyote Hill, what are some of the trauma-informed practices that you all use when working with the kids?
We use a lot of TBRI, trust-based relational intervention, and it recognizes that trauma. We have some of the only people in this area who are certified to teach it by that institute, and we do teach it. And it tries to help you understand why a child is acting a particular way and try to respond in a way that doesn't escalate the situation, but shows them that you can have that understanding and that you will work with them for a different outcome than the one they're getting, which isn't good.
Mm-hmm.
And teaching them that, and teaching that through basically walking through life with them, is the key. It's not, book learning. I can't just read you a book and change you. If I could, I'd just do that for everyone. That's, you have to walk through life with people. That's what you have to do. And when you do that, and they start to pay attention, they see that you care. The old saying goes, don't care what you know until they know that you care. When they see that that's the case, then you earn space in their life to speak into the things that they're struggling with and help them come out with a better solution.
You brought up Duchess in particular. What struck you about Duchess' journey?
The thing about Duchess in particular was also true in some way of Emmett and Billy. The thing that really struck me was, they have this different communities. A family is a community. The boys from the orphanage, that's kind of a community, so on and so forth. But their community ties seem to be very superficial. They talked about the Four Musketeers, all for one, one for all, that kind of thing. But I didn't really see that. I saw that their community was more just a happenstance of being in the same geographical location. It wasn't something where they were duty bound so much. It was just a loose conglomeration of people. You take Duchess. Duchess, as I said in one email, he's a perfectly hateable character who gets your attention every time. At one point, Duchess breaks into an orphanage to give the kids strawberry preserves.
Yeah.
To which I'm thinking, wow, what a great guy. And then he turns right around and steals Emmett's car because the next concern that crossed his mind was going to be New York. And what I think is a lot of that problem there is, for example, Duchess was raised in an environment where he couldn't count on the people who were supposed to love him. They were undependable, and it was dysfunctional. And I think it had such a profound effect that he just became completely detached from the pursuit of any normal existence whatsoever. As I alluded to before, I think it would appear that whatever is the most recent thought or concern that crossed his mind was the only one he could consider.
Yeah.
Sadly, at the end of the day, though, I realized, Duchess was exactly who he was raised to be, with a good bit of attachment disorder thrown in for good measure. And that's why he did those things. And you say, well, he has this most convoluted sense of justice. It doesn't make sense. That's because of the environment he was raised in. None of it ever made sense. And you develop this attachment disorder, and he can say he loves Emmett in one breath and steal his car in the next.
His character was consistent in that way. It was still disappointing to see the end. I thought there might be something there that would turn him around, and was sorry to see it end the way it did for him. Dutch's ending was tough to read about and to hear, but he was consistent in who he was. And Certainly. He was a survivor to a certain level. But his sense of judgment, his impulsivity, his lack of attachment, I think is like when you look at Emmett, he could not understand another person's point of view. No. He only understood his own point of view, and he was confused when other people would have reactions to his behavior. Yeah.
Emmett and Billy, they experienced some of the same things that Duchess did. I had this funniest thought this morning as I was thinking about Emmett and Billy and their family growing up. Sometimes I think in pictures, and I'm thinking about Emmett and Billy and them growing up, and the song Proud Mary by Tina Turner came to mind.
Yeah. Please explain.
Please explain, yes. With regard to the dad, it came to mind in about 3 ways. Left a good job in the city. You know, he's working for the man every night and day. But when he got to the farm, he never lost 1 minute of sleep worrying about the way things might have been. But as it turned out, he was a lousy farmer. No matter how he tried or how long he worked or how hard he worked, he couldn't make it. And the isolation from former friends and stability, I think, put that family in a tailspin through the years and resulted in a serious degradation and decay of the stability that their family was supposed to provide as a unit. And for the boys, this was even further compounded and aggravated, of course, by the abandonment of their mother. Yeah. And so then the picture comes back of that song where it says, rolling down a river, rolling on a river. Yep. And I saw these boys just flailing and trying not to drown in this river, just being swept away, bouncing back and forth from bank to bank, never knowing if it was going to be deep water or shallow, clear water or muddy. There was just incredible uncertainty everywhere. They learned not to depend on community. I came back to community and family. They learned, as many kids do these days that we work with, tons and tons and tons of kids. Family, it's a noun to them. It's not a verb. I have been saying that for a long time. So I Googled it, and it turns out other people have already said it before me. So I can't take any credit for that. I wish I could, but I can't. Family is a placeholder for a loose conglomerate of people. So they never came to depend on it. And I think that plays into a lot of the decisions they made. And I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I also think it might play into Emmett's apparent disinterest in Sally, which I found very disappointing.
Yes, I agree, because she was the sense of community. She was looking out for the neighbor. She was looking out for the little boy. Absolutely. She definitely seemed interested, maybe romantically. There was a little bit of there, you're going to drop everything. You're going to come over and make meals and take care and be that extending arm. But it was never reciprocated. No. It was rejected.
Sally was my favorite character. She's the best. She was the real deal to me. I think she has a good and caring heart. She's compassionate. You could see clearly in the book, every time she found a way to help, she would just do it. And I kept wishing Emmett would see the value of Sally. And I kept asking myself, why can't he see that? And then I just decided it was because probably of the experience of his own parents and his mother just walking out, everything being undependable. You're back in that river, just flailing, trying not to drown. And so he didn't see it. But, and I may be just imagining this because I wish the book would have a happier ending. But I keep thinking to myself, it appears that Sally has some understanding of that and is willing to give him space. The book doesn't actually say that, but I'm hoping that's true.
Yeah.
She's definitely going to California with him, that's for sure.
Yep.
And she's not going to take no for an answer.
So, Larry, you mentioned that a lot of the children that you see at Coyote Hill have these issues of attachment. We've talked a little bit about Coyote Hill. It's just an
Right.
amazing organization. Can you tell us what led you to create Coyote Hill?
My late wife and I, Kathy, started it. And Kathy had been a Big Brother, Big Sister program, and she wanted us to become foster parents. And so we did that. And as we became foster parents, suddenly we realized what an incredible need there was.
Yeah.
And most people, us included at the time, had no idea there was that kind of a need because we just didn't run in those circles. But when you start to make yourself aware of it and know the right people, the need was just incredible, and it's gotten only worse since. You know, we'd talked about doing more. First, we were a foster home. Then we turned our home into a foster family group home. That was something they had at the time. I don't think they have anymore. Then we just realized the need was great and we wanted to grow something. And we sat down one night and said, you know, we don't want to get to the end of our lives without having tried this. And so here we are. It's been quite a journey. Today, we're over 30 years and going strong, and I literally couldn't be happier. We've started foster care services where now we are licensing and training foster parents all over Missouri and have just served hundreds upon hundreds of children.
It's amazing. Am I remembering correctly? The first big effort that you undertook at Coyote Hill was building the first home for kids who were in the foster care system?
Yes. Kathy and I had a home that we had built for ourselves, and we turned that into a foster home. The real quick summary of what happened is this. Kathy was already staying home with the kids all day. I worked at UPS, had been there 13 years. I'd skip lunch and tell people what we were doing, trying to raise the money to support the nonprofit. And we set a goal for me to go full time in July of 93. And we met that goal July 1st of 93. And we thought, okay, we're going to change the world. We're going to build more homes and things like that. A couple of months later, on September 9th, the doctor came to me at Boone Hospital and said, Mr. McDaniel, your wife has extensive cancer.
Yeah.
And she passed away 14 months later, left me with 4 kids.
Yeah.
We moved out of our home into a small home provided by a friend and let other people move into our home to continue serving the children that were there. And we never moved back into our home again. The development director I mentioned to you earlier are saying that when I'm done building the equine program, they want me to write a book about that. And so I probably will.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah, there's a lot to say. So we built the first home on the new property south of there that somebody donated. It's called Kathy's home. It's there to this day, of course. And
beautiful.
It's built in her memory. She never lived to see it this side of heaven, but it's there. And we've just kept going. There are now 7 homes on that property, an arena, beautiful facility. You can go to coyotehill.org and see all about it on the website. A year or 2 ago, we also started foster care services. Nationwide, the statistic is that about 50% of foster parents quit in their first year.
Wow.
Well, that's devastating for foster kids. What are they going to do? Some states have a double-digit percentage decrease in the second year, losing foster parents left and right. So we ask ourselves, why? Why is this? And we interviewed a lot of area foster parents, and the answers we got were lack of training and lack of support. And it's not that Children's Division and others don't care, because they do. It's just a lack of help and lack of staff and funds and resources. So we said we're going to start foster care services. And what we did was we put things all together because as the system was here, you had somebody trying to recruit foster parents, somebody trying to train them, somebody trying to license them, and then somebody else trying to place kids there. And there was just a lot of moving pieces. So we put it all together and packaged it and got a license from the state so that we recruit, we train, we license, and we support foster parents all the way through the process. And then we added another component called family advocates. Family advocates, their job is literally to walk through life with these foster parents. Each family advocate has a certain number of foster parents, and that is their job, walk through life with them. Just make sure they're okay. They have all the knowledge they need, the resources they need, whatever they need. And the last time Carrie gave me the numbers, whereas nationwide, 50% of foster parents quit in the first year. Guess what the percentage is at Coyote Hill?
No idea.
2%.
Unbelievable.
Wow.
2.
You need to get that on the road, Larry, to model from other states. That's fantastic.
That's exactly what we plan to do.
Okay, that's great.
We've expanded here now to Columbia, to Jeff City, to Moberly, and now in Hannibal. The goal from the very beginning, even before we started, was to figure it out, build some kind of a system so that we could basically put it in a book and send somebody to an area anywhere in the country and say, this is how we did it. We don't want to come here and run your program. If you want to know how we did it, here's everything you need to know.
That's great. Kudos to you guys for seeing the struggle and then being able to wrap a service around there to support the families better. Great work at Coyote Hill. It makes me think of Sister Agnes. So I want to get her character in here because you're kind of the Sister Agnes, what you're doing there. And she was one person who was a woman of deep faith. She had great compassion. She seemed, and we're coming back to Duchess again, she seemed to understand what Duchess was missing and tried to teach him, to help him, to show him a better way. What are your thoughts on the role of faith in the healing with trauma?
Well, it depends on how that's presented. We have kids come to us who have been in a faith system, and they can be more challenging than anyone because it's been more in name only and not in actual practice in the home. And so we have many people who have been hurt by a faith experience or a church experience. And so, it's just not helpful, and it's done a lot of harm. And we've seen that. When we started out, we were all about faith. And it's not that we're not now. It's just that we ran into some things that we didn't anticipate about how it can also be used to beat people up and hurt people, and the legalism that can come with it sometimes. Now, can it be good? Well, of course it can. We're all people of faith. And so in practice, I think the more you're like Jesus, the more beneficial that's going to be. Let me put it this way. There are about, say, 100 different denominations or churches or whatever here in Columbia where I live. It's hard to get any two of them to agree on anything. Some of them are on opposite ends of the spectrum. And so it's gotten to the point where when somebody says they're a person of faith, I'm not sure what that means anymore.
Right. Yeah.
I have to get to know you to even know what that means for you. I can say, well, I know what it means for me, and so that's what it should mean for everyone. Well, I'm sorry, but it doesn't work that way. And so when you say, what's the role of faith? Well, if you have a faith that is understanding and compassionate and can lead somebody toward a healing, then obviously that is a very, very good thing. But too many times today, I see people forget the verse, and I think it's Romans 2:4 or something like that, where it says it's not the wrath of God that leads you to repentance or healing, it's the love of God. And we forget all about that. And we're too much about the wrath of God all the time. and beating people up with things instead of loving them into healing.
I'll tell you, Larry, I appreciate your honest answer. I'd rather have honesty than cliche or what you
Yeah.
think people want to hear.
Yeah.
Just the real deal is what I'm about. And I think
Yep.
that your experience with children gives you credibility in saying what you just said.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, that was an honest answer.
One of the characters in the Lincoln Highway just can't see a future for himself, and he commits suicide.
Right.
What is your message to young people who have trouble seeing that things can get better in their lives and think that suicide is a step that they're probably going to take?
Right. It's devastating. We've dealt with that before. Youth sometimes, and not just youth, but people, adults, sometimes decide that they've lost purpose. They have no purpose,
Yeah.
and there's no hope. And when somebody thinks there's no hope, that's a really bad place to be. And they will do things that are regrettable and sometimes make a split decision that has eternal consequences, forever consequences, or however you want to say it.
Yeah.
All I can say without knowing a particular case or talking to a particular person is, please don't ever think that there is no hope. I can promise you that is not true. It is never true that there is no hope for you in your life. And it is never true that you have no purpose. Those things are never true. So don't act on them. When you have those kinds of thoughts, you need to find people who won't beat you up with all their preaching and everything else, but just find people who will meet you where you are and help you find some purpose and some hope and help you heal and grow again. Now, I personally think everybody has different ways to do that. There are lots of different ways out there. There are lots of different therapists, different kinds of help. Sometimes the best help you can find is a dog.
Yeah.
I often tell the story about a man that helped me greatly in my life who didn't even finish high school and was dirt poor, but he knew to show me that there was hope, that there was purpose, and it made a huge difference in my life. Personally, I like to use horses and the outdoors. Those are my tools, horses and the outdoors, to help people find purpose and hope. And other people are able to use, say, sports, for example. There are people that you'll talk to sometimes that will say, my coach, he took me in and loved me like a dad and helped me find hope, helped me find purpose. So there's all kinds of different ways, just whatever works for you. And if horses in the outdoors is a way that works for someone, then I'm their person. If not, then somebody else is. But don't just sit and do nothing and act on those two lies that there's no purpose or hope. Those are lies. Those are not true.
Yeah, beautifully said.
What did you think of Ulysses? I liked Ulysses.
Loved Ulysses.
He was another one of my favorites. And, I have to tell you, at the end of the book, I was trying to think of something happy about the book.
Yeah.
And the part of the book that was more pleasant or cheerful to me was the relationship between Billy and Ulysses.
Absolutely.
I love that. And that Ulysses was there to save Billy, and then they became friends. And it just wasn't a happy story. It's at the end. I mean, it wasn't a bad story. It was a great book, but I'm just saying, Wooly took his own life. Duchess drowned. Emmett and Sally didn't fall in love. I don't know what's going to happen on the way to California.
Right.
And to top it all off, somebody painted a perfectly good baby blue Studebaker, some hideous yellow. Are you kidding me?
I love those twins.
It doesn't match the interior. So
now I had not thought of that.
Yeah. Well, I did. I thought there's no way that matches the interior.
What I loved about Billy and Ulysses is that they each gave something of themselves to each
Yes.
other. I mean, it's a very
Yes.
reciprocal relationship, and they learned from one another. I think especially Ulysses learned so much from Billy, and it really changed his way of thinking about himself and the world that was very positive for him.
Absolutely. He started healing.
Yes,
And that's what I was saying with regard to thinking you have no purpose and no hope. Look at Ulysses. It was a boy with a book
right.
that helped him start healing. And
Right.
I thought it was beautiful. I loved it.
I love the Billy character. He was a strong character for
Hmm.
me. I
Yeah.
really fell in love with this little soul. I think what helped him was Sally
Hmm.
and the bond that he had with her, the bond that he had
Hmm.
with Emmett as his kind of a substitute parent in some
Hmm.
ways. I'm concerned about him. And I thought, if there's a book too, I'm concerned about Billy
Yeah.
because there is a naivete with him.
Right.
He's still a small boy. He hasn't been beat up by life in some ways,
Hmm.
and he has been protected by his older brother. And when he goes to California, there's a reason why mom left. There's a reason why she hasn't sought them out. And so I think of him and the journey there and what will happen when they go to California.
You pointed out Emmett's been kind of a father figure, but I don't know that it would be too much of a stretch to say Sally's kind of a mother figure.
Yeah,
Yes. Oh, yes,
definitely.
absolutely.
And I really like Sally.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Big Sally fans.
Yeah.
And she can
Yeah.
cook. So why would
Yeah.
you not take her on your road trip, for goodness
Yeah.
sakes?
I just think she's a solid person.
Oh, absolutely. She's got some grit to her, too,
Grit. Absolutely.
from the
Yeah.
principal or.
Hmm. She's a strong person.
So she was your favorite character in the book?
Oh, if I had one, yeah. And it's probably because I know she's probably not meant to be a main character, although maybe she is, but I really like her because she was for real. She is who she is. You can take it or leave it. She doesn't change it depending on where she is or who she's with. And she's compassionate and caring. And, I really love being around people like that.
Yeah, she was definitely someone that you could imagine being a friend, in
Oh,
real
yeah,
life. If she was a
sure.
real person, you'd think, wow, she would be a really neat person to know.
Yes, she would. Hmm.
Larry, you told us a little bit about the beginnings of Coyote Hill,
Yes.
and you married our beloved cousin.
Yes, I did.
Some things changed there in your life as well. You had 4 children, and then you ended up with 6.
Yes.
You want to tell everyone just a little bit about that history as well?
Well, when I was a single dad with 4 kids in that little white house, sometimes another one of your cousins, Nate Cole,
Yeah.
would come over once a week, and I would make pancakes for breakfast, and we'd have a little Bible study or pray together or something. And one day when he was walking out, he said to me, Lori thinks that you should write my cousin Denise a letter. Well, since Lori said it, I thought, well, maybe I ought to consider that. So I did. And then she wrote back, and then I wrote, and then she wrote, and then it turned into long, long letters. And then it turned into, I sat down with the kids and we made a book. I mean, we had a index and chapters and everything, and sent it. And
Oh,
yeah, one thing led to another. When we got married, I wrote a song for our wedding called Love at First Right.
Oh,
yes. I remember
well,
that.
we
And
were
what,
at your wedding, Larry. I don't know if
yeah,
you remember that or
yeah.
not.
And the other thing that I like about that is that when each of my kids have gotten married, I rewrote some of the lyrics, and they also had it at their wedding.
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah.
that's wonderful.
that is so
So
nice.
when we got married, there were then 6 kids, and they were all aged 995544.
That's a house full.
Now the 4-year-olds actually were twins that Kathy and I had. They're all out of the house now and doing great. I lost my Amanda in 2010 to cancer.
Yeah.
And that is something that will um, never, never be okay,
Yep.
ever. So
Oh,
No, it's devastating.
she was just, my whole world.
She was such a light.
She was. Her, everybody just nicknamed her Amanda Joy. She was so full of joy.
Yeah.
oh,
And she was sincerely through and through and all the way to the end. So, yeah, we think of her every day. Every Christmas, we put up a joy tree.
Oh,
And yeah, we do things like that. So,
oh, that's lovely.
anyway, all the other kids are grown and doing well. And Abby is a foster parent, and she has 10 kids in her home right now.
it's amazing.
See, the legacy lives on.
Truly.
That's awesome.
And Denise is Denise. She is full of love and laughter all the time.
Yep.
So, yeah,
Yes, she
Denise.
is.
She would fit right in with you guys at any time, as you know. So,
Oh, we love having her around, that's for sure.
yeah. Well, she loves to travel. She's always picking a new place to go, and I'm always figuring out how I can stay home. So, uh,
Oh, I love
so
it. So, Larry, a little bit more about you. I know that you have stepped down from the CEO role there
yeah,
at
yeah, I
Coyote
did.
Hill. Tell us about what's on the horizon for Coyote Hill.
After 30 years, I retired as CEO, and Bill Atherton is now the CEO. He's been there like 25 years, and also Kerry Hopkins is our Chief Development Officer. And those guys are just awesome in every way. I love them. Who knows where they're going to be able to take that organization. I have 100% trust in them, and I don't lose a minute's sleep over their outstanding leadership. So I'm continuing on for a few years as founder and finishing building the equine program where we want it. We've served hundreds of foster kids last year in our equine program, but we're just kind of, taking it over the top, trying to build it into something that is truly exceptional. And so I'm going to stay there a few more years and finish that. And then I don't know what I'll do. I'll need to find something to do because I got to keep busy.
Yeah.
I love to work.
I'm so impressed with the work of Coyote Hill and everything. You've laid such a great foundation for the next people to take over. What's the best way to have people stay in touch with what's going on at Coyote Hill and what you're up to, Larry?
Well, you can go to coyotehill.org, and we're on Facebook and Instagram and all the places, and, sign up for a newsletter or something like that.
That sounds great.
Yeah. If somebody just wants to talk to me personally, they can find me on Facebook, Larry McDaniel.
Excellent. Well, Larry, it's been so great having you on the front porch and hearing about Coyote Hill and your insights on this book as well. But I'm kind of hoping that maybe you'll come back when you have your book finished and you'll come back to the front porch and talk to us about that.
Oh, I'd love to anytime.
Thank you so much, Larry. It's just been delightful having you on the front porch.
Thank you for having me. I loved it.
Thanks for stopping by.
Bye.
Oh my golly, loved listening to Larry. What a heart he has for children.
Absolutely.
And the work that he's done there over the decades to change people's lives. Just loved listening to him and his thoughts too on this book that we read.
Yeah, really incredible. I really just cannot imagine the hundreds and hundreds of children whose lives he's positively impacted. Just kind of makes me at a loss for words, really.
Yeah. And I'm not going to cry, so maybe we just stop. But he is. He's an inspirational person. I loved that. Okay. Well, hey, on another note here, March is coming, sweet sis.
Yes, it is.
And your play is coming. And next month, we are going to talk about the book, No Ordinary Men, Dietrich Bonhoeffer
Woo-hoo.
and Hans von
Dagnani.
Oh, geez. Okay, so that's German. So that's our book because, of course, it's about Dietrich. and Nancy's plays about Dietrich. So in March, we are going to look at that book, and we're also going to learn about Nancy's play.
I'm very excited, Lenny.
I know. I'm excited too. Because I get to come out to Nebraska and see your play.
It's so exciting. Next month, one of the episodes will be me and the director-producer of the play, and he has assembled an unbelievable cast and design team and production team. It's just so exciting.
It is really exciting. I'm looking forward to next month and our book. I encourage people to get the book, No Ordinary Men, so that you can learn a little bit about Dietrich and Hans and what they were up against with the Nazis, why they chose the actions that they did. I'm halfway through the book already. It's a very easy read. I think people will really enjoy it.
Yeah, I think so too. Until then, get in touch with us by going to our website at frontporchbookclub.com.
Our episodes come out twice a month on the first and third Wednesdays of each month. If you like the show, please leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you have any questions about Dietrich, throw those on there too. I think that would be interesting to hear people's thoughts about him.
That's a great idea. Listeners, thanks so much for joining us. See you next time, Lenny.
See you next time, Nance.
Bye-bye.
Bye.